Hello and welcome to today's video. My name's Haley and today we're going over the 14th gene key, radiating prosperity. 3 parts, the shadow of compromise, which is what we will be going over today, the gift of competence, and the city of bounteousness. It's a mouthful. So yes, today all about the shadow of compromise. Even just hearing that word makes me kind of like, just like want to cringe thinking about all the compromises I've made in my life and how they've really never served me too well. And also I just want to emphasize we're talking about compromise in a shadow frequency. So of course sometimes this word compromise can be utilized in a way that is constructive. For instance, in some relationships you need compromise in order for them to blossom and flourish. So there is good versions of this. Today we're talking through the shadow lens as Richard Rudd writes about. Okay, so the first note I have on here is right at the top next to where it says the title 14th Shadow Compromise. And I just go, haha, me as a model. So for you who's watching, how many things come to mind when you think of this word compromise once again in a devaluing light? Have you compromised yourself for a job like me? Or maybe you have compromised yourself negatively within a relationship, whether that be familial or romantic or friendly. He opens this chapter by talking about the 14th hexagram within the I Ching, which is what the gene keys is mocked after. 64 hexagrams, there's also 64 gene keys. So he gives us a little history lesson on the 14th hexagram, which is called possession in the great measure, and is symbolized by a large wooden wheel. The symbology of a wheel he denotes is of wealth, prosperity, health, all linked to good fortune and hard work. He ropes this back into the 14th gene key because this key as a whole, radiating prosperity, is about generating abundance and wealth. But here we are talking about compromise. And it's true, right? The city name is bounteousness. I don't know if I'm saying that right, by the way. But from compromising my values, my boundaries, what I want and need, and elevating into acidic state of bounteousness. So keep this image of a wheel of fortune in your mind as we walk through this chapter. This gene key as a whole is all about unlocking the prosperity that is already yours. So he says, and the way in which humans work. It concerns the choice of work you do, the people you work with, and above all, that's my sad drum roll, the way you work, right? 99.99% of reality is energy, is intention, is the way in which you do things, not actually what you do. So this gene key as a whole is about the way in which you move throughout the world and specifically in the work environment. Do you make compromises that devalue you, that disservice you, or not? And actually, before I continue here, I'm going to offer you the first contemplation. This can be just a quick little pause and jot down. Currently, the job you stand in, what do you find yourself compromising? Maybe you compromise some of your time. Even though you're only supposed to work 8 hours a day, you end up working 9 because, well, Stacy needs you to finish your project so that she can start hers, and it's just easier not to hear it from Stacy and my boss. So I'll just compromise an extra hour of my time and stay in the office. So maybe you're compromising your time, or maybe you're compromising your money. You're not actually getting paid what you think you deserve or what you desire, but nonetheless you're still in this job because, well, at least I have a job, it's good enough, it pays the bills. Maybe it doesn't allow me to go on the extra expenditures I'd like, but it's fine. Compromise is this energy of like, it's fine, which clearly when I say that, you can sense that it's not fine. So kind of think about where in your work environment does that energy of like, eye roll, it's fine energy come up. Because more likely than not, there's a compromise hiding somewhere subliminally, or rather obviously in there. So yeah, think about that for a sec. Jot that down and carry it with you through the rest of this chapter. Every human being has a built-in genetic need to work. And then ironically enough, Richard Rudd highlights here that this very word work has become associated in the English language with the concept of effort, when in reality, the word work actually just means action, doing, creating. Not all work has to be effort and force and compromise. Yet how often, more than not, when you hear the word work, does it trigger you in a certain way? Or do you equate it with hard work? There's such thing as easy work. There is such thing as joyful work. And there's such thing as work that brings you bliss and excitement and opens a channel. Work that you can't wait to get to. I know this sounds crazy for most people, right? You're like, no, I could wait. I could take an extra day off before I have to go to work. But think about this. If you genuinely, truly enjoyed your job, these Monday blues wouldn't even come around. Monday would be just as a hallelujah as a Sunday. Because if you genuinely enjoyed your work, you wouldn't see it as something that needs to be kicked down the road or sighed about. So something to just keep in mind. The word work doesn't actually mean anything bad. It just has an extremely negative connotation because of the light in which we've painted it as a society. Specifically within America, and then I feel that's bled into most environments as well. But back to that initial statement, every human being has the built-in genetic need to work. So when he uses the word work here, he's not talking about this hard work, so effortful, I hate my job type of work. He's just talking about the neutral word work. Every human being has a built-in genetic need to create, you could sub it with. Every human being has a built-in genetic need to make stuff happen, move, come into fruition, blossom, manifest. So as we move through this, if it helps you to sub the word work with creation, do so. Manifestation, I gave you some other options earlier. And it's true, right? I know I sure have this drive inside of me to, whatever, make these videos. I don't even get paid to do this, right? I'm just doing this because I want to do it. I don't know. I just like doing it. And this is an interesting thing that's brought up, right? Some work we do because, I don't know, I just want to do it. No, I'm not getting compensated in any way, but my compensation is in the pure act of creation. And then this more negatively connotated work is, well, I do this thing, not because I want to, but because I need the compensation that's going to come to me at the end. And this begins the differentiation between neutral work that every human has a genetic desire to take part in, and this like, compromising shadow-oriented work. I'm only working in order to attain the goal of the paycheck at the end of the month. Every human being has a built-in genetic need to work. So you who's watching this, whether you have a job or not, let's just put that to the side. Take your job out of your mind, clean slate. What do you genuinely enjoy doing? So much so that if you had some free time right now, you might actually engage in it. Maybe it's making YouTube videos. Maybe it's reading a book you like. Maybe it's writing a poem. Maybe it's playing soccer. making a beautiful meal for your friends and yourself, creating a picnic for people to attend. Just genuinely, I mean, you can think of the word hobby here. What's a hobby that you have? And write these down. Maybe there's a few of them that come to mind. Something that no one needs to pay you or bribe you to do. You, of your own free will and volition, enjoy doing it, and therefore you do it. And in this light, we could also sub the word hobby into this sentence. Every human being has a built-in genetic need to hobby, to partake in hobby, to partake in things that bring them joy while they simultaneously move through the world. Wow, 2 contemplations already, or only 1 paragraph in. I was really hyped about this this 14th gene key, radiating prosperity. It really, yeah, it's really stuck out to me in a really prominent way. So this word work, we do view it in a negative light. It does have a draining quality to it when you hear it. And this honestly just shows how deeply we are embodied within the shadow of compromise. It's actually so normal to compromise my values, what I need, what I enjoy, that it doesn't even tick most people as like, wait, I should like my work? Most people actually expect to hate their work, or expect like, oh, well, you know, everyone else does it, so like, I guess I should too. It's kind of like, you know, if one person jumps off the bridge, well, he did it, she did it, oh, I guess I will too. It actually, from a zoomed out point, does not make a lot of sense. You're jumping into your own death when you sign up for something you don't actually want to do, that doesn't actually bring you joy, when you're only doing it to receive the paycheck at the end of the month. And this is all because of compromise. Starting with admittance, right? Like, I admit I've been willing to compromise what I actually need, what I actually enjoy, in order to do this thing I don't actually even like. He defines compromise for us. He says, compromise is the byproduct of living without a sense of personal freedom. Compromise implies a lack of imagination and an inability to believe in the power of your own uniqueness and individuality. That's nice and fluffy. I'm going to give you guys a real world example because I feel it helps crystallize Richard Rudd's words so that you can really understand them. So, what's an example of living without a sense of personal freedom? My own life. I'm going to give you an example from my personal experience. When I was a model, if you don't know this, which I'm sure you do if you watched any of my videos because I talk about it all the time, I was a model for 5 years and I compromised a lot. Probably the most notable being my health, physical and mental. I was physically deteriorating, literally like withering away, lost the menstrual cycle, got PCOS, my brain started to deteriorate into mental anxiety, could not leave the house, could not eat in front of people, like I could go on, right? So I was compromising pretty much a huge chunk of life itself, which is health. And this is a perfect example of this definition of compromise because I didn't have the personal freedom. I wasn't gifting myself the personal freedom to choose health because I genuinely thought if I choose health, well, then I'm going to lose my job that I don't even like. Compromise implies a lack of imagination and an inability to believe in the power of your own uniqueness and individuality. Well, if I start to prioritize my health and reclaim that, well, then there's no way I'd be able to ever work as a model because, well, models can't work if they're healthy because they're too big and they don't fit in the clothes and, you know, all the logic starts to filter in. When really, let's say for a second, when I was very, very sick, I was able to kind of snap out of it and realize I was operating in a shadow frequency of compromise. And I was able to snap out of that and in turn start to believe in the power of my own uniqueness and individuality. Then there'd start to be voices of, you can do it at your natural size. You can be healthy and model. You don't have to compromise anything. You don't have to give up your health or your values or your boundaries. Obviously, I didn't conjure up that kind of heat until current day, which is all good. takes time sometimes to, elevate out of a shadow frequency. And I tell you all of this to once again paint a crystallization of the definition of compromise. To break out of compromise is to reclaim your ability to choose what you actually want and desire and need. Breaking out of compromise is the prefrontal cortex turning on, the imagination sparking, so that you can start to believe in the power of your own uniqueness and individuality. Okay, so let's say that the imagination starts churning. If you're watching this, like, let's just paint an example. You're watching this, you don't like your job. Well, if she can do it, then I can do it. This is how it starts, right? You find inspiration, whether it's through another person, reading a book that a spiritual thought leader wrote, listening to a podcast of someone you like. You find inspiration from somewhere. You find inspiration in nature. Something wakes you up from your shadow and starts to enlighten you, offer you a new way of being. Or maybe this epiphany comes to you in your sleep, a dream, meditation. And even with this little spark of inspiration, this creativity starting to turn on, awareness of your own uniqueness and individuality, the awareness of another way to be and work. Even those of us who can see a way out of our dissatisfaction rarely have the courage to actually follow through with our dreams because of a deep-seated fear that we lack the power and capacity to complete the long journey towards those dreams. The most important part of that sentence is the word courage. Awareness is not enough. Awareness is the first step. We went over this in a past Gene Key. And naturally, the building of awareness leads to the next step, which is courage. On the David R. Hawkins Map of Consciousness scale, which I love to reference, courage is the point of transmutation from low vibration or shadow to high vibration, gift frequency, acidic states. It takes courage to actually change. So you not only have to see reality for what it is, which is, I'm not satisfied with the work I'm doing. I don't feel joy. I feel a sense of compromise, draining, Monday. It takes the awareness of all that. And then the courage to follow through with an action that will help free me from my lack of personal freedom, from my cage. And from my own experience, I can tell you guys that courage, sometimes you can attain it in one holy instant, all the courage you need to change. But more often than not, it's like cherry picking. Pick a little bit of courage here, a little bit here, a little bit here, and one day you have enough to finally transcend whatever cage you've built for yourself. Every story is different. For me, it definitely was a slow degradation of accumulating courage. This is also relative, right? I consider it slow that it took me 2 years to break free from this conditioning. Some people might think that's fast. Doesn't really matter. The point is, you need an amplitude of energy to break free from the own cage you've created, to break free from this work that brings you no joy. To off with the head with compromise. There needs to be not only a firm decision within the mind, but so firm that it translates through the actions and moves the body through space and time to take actions in accord with your new belief system, which is, I don't believe in compromise. I only want to engage in work that genuinely brings me joy. So much so that even if I wasn't getting paid, I would still be doing this. And I know a lot of you who are watching are thinking, oh, that's not possible. Well, actually it is. And I know, because I do it now, I have a job I genuinely love that I would be doing without getting paid. And my boyfriend has a job like that. And I have friends that have jobs like that. And perhaps this is one of the most interesting things. As you start to break free of compromise, you also start to attract other people who have also broken free of compromise and serve as an example to what life looks like without compromise. So courage is the key of transmutation. Okay, so where does compromise come from? Richard Rudd takes us on a little rabbit hole. Compromise begins when we are very young. The first 7 years of an individual's life are very, very formative, right? Your brain is developing at rapid speed, and those first few years specifically, it's also in very low brainwave states. You're basically wide open like a sponge, ready to soak up any and all information that's being presented to you in the form of people, their behavior, your environment, and the world around you. So you're essentially inheriting shadows or this norm of compromise from your parents, from your neighbors, from your school teachers, from other adults that have already lost the plot. And this is not so that you can later on after this video go and project blame onto your parents. This is just awareness. Same with them, right? When they were little kids, they soaked up this norm of compromise that was presented to them. So it's no one's fault. I want to emphasize that. Blame takes us nowhere. Many people dream and aspire to greatness when they are young. Okay, how many of you had a dream when you were young? Oh, I want to go to the moon. I want to be president. Mine was, I want to be on American Idol. Whatever, you have this big dream. And then someone squashes it, right? Whether it's a school teacher being like, oh, honey, you can't be president because you can't even really speak English without an accent. Like, that's not gonna work. Or maybe it's your parent, like in my case. I said I wanted to be on American Idol. Remember, I wrote this song and I presented it to my mother, and she was like, I was like, so do I get a golden ticket? For those of you who don't know, American Idol is a TV show where an individual sings, and then if they get a golden ticket, they go to the next round. And then at the end, they choose one like singer that came from nothing, basically. So I performed this song, and I said, Mommy, would you give me a gold ticket? And she goes, you want me to be honest? No, I wouldn't. And I remember from that day forward, I said, fine, I will never sing again. Clearly, I'm not a singer. You know, all the beliefs are planted in just one moment sometimes is all it takes. So whether or not you can locate the memory in which your dreams were squashed or not does not matter. The point of all of this, Richard Rudd is bringing to light, is that when we are young, we come into this world with dreams, with talents, with gifts, with zero compromise. We're only going for what brings us joy. And then somehow over the course of the evolution of our adulthood, or raising into adulthood, I should say, the dreams get squashed and compromise enters the equation, the shadow of compromise. You are not born with this shadow of compromise. Early dreamy aspiration actually burns at a very high frequency. Very high. You're literally just following your joy when you're that little girl that's 6 years old that's singing at the top of her lungs, even if it sounds like a frog, right? You're in the frequency of joy, which is extremely energy filled. If maintained, harnessed, and given direction, it will eventually lead this person in a direction of excellence. Okay, yeah, maybe right now my voice does sound like shit, but I have a high energy frequency of joy behind it. If that joy doesn't get squashed, if I'm able to keep that alive, keep your dreams alive, keep dreaming, naturally, the way evolution works is it will start to filter and channel into something that is beautiful and brings joy to all, because that's the nature of joy. It wants to spread itself. It wants to express as beauty, as God. And the sad truth, right? Most of our dreams are stumped early on. And schools don't exactly foster the environment for dreams to flourish either, right? We're all kind of shoved into one classroom to learn the same thing in the same way. And well, if you don't learn like this, then you get an F. That's a whole nother rabbit hole, the need for reformation within the school environment. He does actually note here that within the school environment, we need to start treating every child like an individual, because they are. They're not all the same. They don't learn all the same. They all have different passions and joy, and to stuff them into one comprehensive classroom or school or grade or level makes zero sense. He says that parents need to creatively inspire their children. How does an adult do that? How does a parent do that? How does a teacher do that? They themselves are inspired and act on their own creativity. They themselves don't compromise. And this is why I had us at the beginning of this chapter brainstorm where we are currently compromising in our own works that we do. Because even whether you choose to have children or not, it's so important for examples of the truth, for people who refuse to compromise and live in that shadow frequency to start to permeate the earth, so that you can inspire the children to never get squashed in the first place. Imagine that. Imagine if every child right now today never had another dream squashed. I mean, we'd be golden. Things would naturally fix themselves if this shadow never entered the equation anymore. So the best way to creatively inspire children, whether they're your children or not, is to you yourself be inspired creatively and act on that inspiration. Do work that you love. Off with the head to compromise. And I'll leave you guys with this last thought. There will be a part 2 to this shadow frequency of compromise, to go over the repressive nature of impotence and the reactive nature of enslaved. But this last thought, he says, whenever you compromise, you're settling for the second best. Or maybe the third, fourth, fifth best. Maybe the 26th best, depending how much you, quote unquote, hate your job, right? Sorry, strongly dislike. Hate is a very strong word. Whenever you compromise, you're settling. That means you can't fully enjoy something you're settling for. Settlement implies, okay, fine. Yeah, it's fine. Once again, that energy of like, what you're saying and how you're saying it don't energetically line up. There's a dissonance there. You can sense a passive aggression, which might even be subliminal or unconscious, right? And something very simply put that you don't enjoy, you cannot excel in. You must enjoy the work you do in order to excel at it. And excel in this sentence means sustainable, right? An exponential acceleration. Keep getting better. Keep building more joy. Keep building more abundance in the energetics of it and in the monetary version of it. You must enjoy it if you wish to truly excel in a sustainable and foolproof way. Enjoyment and enthusiasm are the fuel in the turbine that drives you to excel. So he brings it back to that visual of the Wheel of Fortune that I brought up at the beginning of this chapter. You need this enjoyment, this enthusiasm to turn this Wheel of Fortune and start to generate all the wealth. And once again, it's not the wealth that is propelling you forward, it's the actual partaking in the work that makes you want to keep moving forward. You so enjoy every step of what you're doing that it's just the cherry on top, the wealth that you get at the end for doing all of that. Stay tuned for next time, where I'll go over part 2 of the 14th Shadow of Compromise. Hey guys, thanks again for tuning in with me for this Gene Keys episode. I also just wanted to come on here and start promoting my one-to-one coaching that I offer to women and girls ages 16 to 35. If you followed me on Instagram for a while, you might be a little bit familiar with my story. I was a model in New York City for 5 years, and in that time frame, I did quite some damage. I developed a really severe eating disorder, body dysmorphia, chronic anxiety. Oh my gosh, I couldn't even go out to dinner without thinking about how much calories, how much I'd have to overwork out in order to compensate for what I was eating. All of those issues led to quite a depression and turned into PCOS, and I also lost my menstrual cycle for over 5 years. All of this amalgamation of issues led me to soon realize that something needed to change. I went through much work. Many people helped me to get to where I am now. And I'm so thrilled to say I'm living such a more abundant life, and I don't feel zapped and drained and fear of judgment anymore like I used to. I would love to offer what I've learned through my own embodied experience, the meditative techniques that have gravitated toward me, and the own verified games that I've made up and curated to help you walk home to more of you and who you really are, so that all of these things can stop draining your energy. You know, all the constant comparison to others and to your people on Instagram, all the over-analysis about working out and what you're eating or what you look like. All of these things are not what life's about, as cheesy as it sounds. And I would love to help you come into more unity with you if you struggle with any of these things and you're a woman or girl between the ages of 16 and 35. So feel free to reach out to me if one-on-one coaching sounds resonant. You can feel free to DM me through Instagram or contact me via email, both of which will be left below in the description box. So much love and aloha to you guys, and I'll see you all in the next video.